Hello everyone, I'm Forrest McFreelava, and this is Speedplay Germany and Hearts of Iron 4, number 10. We are going to pull ahead and just get all of our naval units out of wherever they're at and move them to Leningrad, which I assume would have renamed as the German Reich, and just pull them all away so we don't attrition them, since we're going to need to build up our naval forces for the inevitable invasion of the United Kingdom and then perhaps eventual invasion of the United States. We're also building synthetic oil factories, since they also build synthetic rubber, which we are in terrible need of. We are at something like minus 100 oil, or minus 100 rubber. We go ahead and set up our garrison units to take over control over Persia, Afghanistan, all of that, and also the Arabian Peninsula, which we don't quite own just yet. The reason for that, we just really want to just maintain control over all those areas. We also get our forces ready for the invasion of Iraq. Admittedly, it is a little pointless of us to be invading Iraq, Saudi Arabia, and all of the Arab states, simply because we already have all the oil we need. We just need rubber, which isn't really here. However, these areas do protect British interests vaguely around, and we may as well just annex anything not already in the Axis. So we are just kind of gunning through the Iraqi countryside. Their military is not really defending itself very well. We managed to befriend Denmark, which doesn't actually mean we have enough relations to get them in the Axis, so it was kind of pointless. We are also just gunning through the remnants of the Iraqi state. We're not actually winning all of the battles, but we're doing decently well enough. We're taking all of the victory points, and that really is what matters most. Once we take Baghdad, I believe the war will just end. They'll capitulate. And there we go, they did. So we just destroyed that last British unit, and now I can move on to Saudi Arabia. In India, they don't have nearly enough forces, so we're not even paying much attention to that. We set up the line of attack for our Saudi Arabian invasion, and they'll just have a while to prepare while we get our Casus Belli done. And there we go, MP Brigades number 1 is done, so we have military police. We're just going to attach them to all of our infantry units. Now, it had been said that it would be a good idea to add military police to cavalry. While undoubtedly that would make them more effective, if we were to do that, it means that we would have to build a lot of cavalry. And we're just using our infantry, since we're not going to use them for any combat roles, basically for the rest of time. And so many of them already exist. So it's good to just put them all to use, and it doesn't take very much of our production, so we can focus more on planes, which admittedly we can't build very quickly because we don't have enough rubber. So it does all just kind of circle back to the fact that we are lacking quite a bit of a key resource. We are just going to drive into India a bit. Wherever we are fighting the British forces, they are putting up too much resistance. We are also losing a bit in northern France, so we just transfer some of our fighter craft over into the northern French theater. So hopefully that will work itself out. Since the British forces, or the Raj forces in India, are doing so well against our troops, we're just going to encircle them. We also begin fabricating claims on Yemen and Oman, and declare war against the Sauds, which brings them into the Allies and all of that, and somehow also brings the Swedes against us, so we really need to clean up our war against Finland and then drive our forces down across Sweden proper. We'll see how well that goes. We also have to cut off these American forces to prevent them from fleeing into now hostile Sweden. And in Saudi Arabia, we're doing decently well without really having to worry about it too much, which is pretty great. We also go ahead and just adjust our production a little bit, since we are apparently either taking new factories or just repairing factories we've already taken. We also just go ahead and destroy what's left of this American force, which, yeah, is just kind of trapped there. We are also going to continue encircling all of the Raj forces that we can in India. They aren't all motorized or mechanized, and quite frankly, they don't have enough to stop us. We're also driving through Saudi Arabia, which we're now kind of taking manual control over, since our forces would otherwise just kind of shuffle on back and defend the empty wasteland and just desert corridors of the country. So we just avoid that. Supplies seem to be a lot more forgiving in Hearts of Iron 4 than Hearts of Iron 3, which is pretty awesome if you want to just rove on through the empty deserts of Saudi Arabia without having to worry too much about supplies. And we do, so hooray us. They do put up a little bit of a fight in their last victory point, which is admittedly to be expected. And it doesn't look as though we're making any progress against Sweden, but they also don't really matter too much for us right now. The forces in British India aren't doing much. We are driving the rest of the British garrisons out of the Arabian Peninsula. And we may actually begin researching, and so we do, researching some actual capital ship type units. It's been a long time coming since we've actually done that, in part because we've needed to win the land war to prevent our national destruction. We've basically done that, with the only land war right now being in British India, which really just goes to show how much better we're doing in this war now than the actual Germans in real life. But again, we've defeated the Soviet Union, so that's obvious. We go ahead and set up invasion plans for these last two Arabian Peninsula states. I wonder if they would be called the Gulf states at this point. Not really sure. Alright, at any rate, we are also just continually driving through the British Raj. Eventually they may surrender since they're their own state, separate entirely from the British Empire. We also do just begin researching radar, not really because we need to, but it might be beneficial in the long run. And alright, we are also going to start building up new advanced fighter craft, which means all of our existing fighters we're going to end production of. It's going to slow our production for a while, however, it will give us just better things once we finish that. Also, the British Raj did end up capitulating, which is pretty great. There's just a few pockets of resistance where non-Raj forces were unfortunate enough to be left stranded. So we're going to just go and roll on into that, keep finishing up, just upgrading our aerial production lines. I realize that we are actually making quite a few units, even tanks, which are, quite frankly, subpar or suboptimal. So we're going to just upgrade our tanks to much better variants. I realize that we have 3 separate production queues of heavy tanks, despite the fact that we only have about 2 factories in each production queue. So we've definitely let ourselves get to a point where we're a bit inefficient. The Japanese also just give us tons of expeditionary units, basically just out of their entire military. So we go ahead and set up Garrison Duty for all of new German India, and we're also just going to defend all of the Japanese coastline against, more likely than not, American aggression. If this is actually going to work or not, I really have no idea. We are just kind of hoping that putting all these garrison forces will prevent naval invasions from being too successful. And worst case scenario, we do have 3 very powerful mechanized or motorized divisions. We could probably upgrade them to mechanized at this point. Or maybe not. We've actually done very well very quickly. We declared war on Yemen and Oman. They both joined the Allies, which is not going to do them any good whatsoever. And our forces are just going to drive on through. It looks like we're not even going to face very much resistance whatsoever. Already attacking their final remaining areas. We are actually fighting some pretty stiff resistance in Sweden, in the sense that we can't just overwhelm them, which is significantly different than all these colonial backwaters we're just kind of spilling through. Also, it looks as though garrisons aren't actually doing a very effective job of maintaining order, as that massive French invasion shows. So what we're going to do is, first of all of our Indian forces we're going to put on the border of these 3 independent states and probably justify against them. We're also going to get all of our garrison units vaguely around this French invasion and try to just end that French invasion as quickly as we can, which means just a lot of sporadic clicking as we pull all of the forces vaguely nearby. And it's starting to turn out that it isn't actually that significant of an invasion force. It just sort of looked like it because they had taken over so many territories. I wish that there was a bit more of an alert for when a nation is actually successfully invading you, as opposed to launching a pretty much guaranteed to fail naval invasion. However, I guess that is vaguely too specific to hope for. And we do have an entire armored group charging on over, or I guess just being shipped on over, to Western Europe. Well, hopefully they will form the nucleus of whatever force we end up using to take over the British Isles proper. We also are going to just try to clean up whatever pockets of Allied forces exist on our continents, which I guess our continents are just Asia and Europe, and hopefully Africa after a while, but we're just going to leave that to our AI allies since I really can't be bothered with it. We go ahead and put even more fighters. We have something like 2,000 fighters now, or 2,000 strength of fighters. And we're going to just try to charge into this gap in the Swedish line. Hopefully we can get Sweden to capitulate, although it isn't really all that vital. We do begin fabricating our claims on these 3 states, not that there's really any resources or real reason for us to go into them. However, we may as well just turn the entire world Axis while we're at it. And hopefully we can drive in through the Swedish territories. I realize that giant, thick forests aren't really a thing that lend themselves to rapid motorized advances. Yet nevertheless, that's the situation we find ourselves in, so it's the situation they're going to have to make work. There is another French invasion, which I'm not too worried about considering the poor quality of the last one. It's just a bit of a nuisance. We also are taking our our Air Force units. It looks as though it says we control the English Channel. We're going to go ahead and make the game prove that. We also did manage to finish researching one ship, so we'll just research another ship and potentially start building up our surface navy. What I think we're going to focus on right now is building naval units that have a high rate of anti-aircraft, just high anti-aircraft ratings. We also are sending our Air Force to go fight in the English Channel region, hopefully preventing any naval strikes and opening the door for us to launch naval strikes of our own. We did finally finish researching, we did finally research more advanced naval bombers, and we will hopefully get a full production queue. Apparently I forgot how to speak in the last 30 seconds. We will have hopefully a full production queue of naval bombers to clear the English Channel region of British shipping to pave the way for our eventual invasion. Up in northern Sweden, still kind of stagnating. It looks as though we do have pretty decent control over the English Channel region, which is just fantastic news. We should probably be building more medium fighters and less short-range fighters, just so that we can have a wider range in which we can attack. We had been previously focusing on more short-range fighters simply because we'd been defending our own airspaces, and they do seem to be better craft in the distance they can fight. Alright, that all said and done, we're probably going to call it for today right here. Thank you very much for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe. We will be back tomorrow with more